Greetings and welcome to my channel. This is Sorcerer Tal. You can also find me on Facebook in the Sorcerer's Guild. Today, on Sorcerer's Shadow Volume 2, we are going to be talking about naturally occurring hauntings before we get on to some of the less naturally occurring hauntings that we can create. Now, as I said in the last video, we are going to be taking this particular essay in portions. And today, we will be talking a little bit about the realm of death itself. Then we will be talking about echo hauntings and how that leads to repeater ghosts and how that can manifest into some very interesting phenomena. Before we get into that though, there will be a link to a Google Docs copy of this essay in the description portion of the post if you would like to read along for free. However, if you would like to purchase a copy of the Sorcerer's Shadow Volume 2 on Amazon, there will be a link for you to do that there as well. Okay, so what is the realm of death? The realm of death is a recording of what has gone on before. Some like to think of it as a cassette tape or VHS recording within the magnetic sphere of the earth. And there are a lot of theories about that with your EMF detectors and different things where they say that there's an electromagnetic field pulse around ghosts. I have seen not a lot of proof of it, to be honest. I do have an EMF detector myself and have tried working with these things. I'm not convinced of the theory. I will say that there are a few times that they have lit up when I had reason to suspect there was a ghost, but there are times when I have sensed a ghost and the things don't light up at all. So it might have something to do with when they interact with them intentionally. I'm not sure about all that. Not enough to give any real set theory on it. Anyways, so what I do know about the realm of death is that it is created by the law of repetition. Every time that a pattern is repeated, the momentum of its cycle increases, like we talked about in some of the earlier episodes. And that is what is behind this. This is the past is death. It is the building blocks of what was that create the moment of what is. And each moment has its bursts of energy within the theater of life. And each one of these moments creates a recording. But when certain motifs or ideas get repeated, they create a memory within a place. And so when you hear footsteps walking down the hall every time there's a full moon, it's because someone went down that hallway every time there was a full moon. And so when the exact circumstances are repeated, the part of the pattern that was missing is remembered by the place itself, and it remembers those footsteps going down the hall and creates the sound that goes with that because the pattern has been so well ingrained. And these are your echo hauntings, and it comes much more than that. Another example that I mention in the essay is I used to work in a place called Freeport Center. It's an industrial complex in my hometown, and I have never once heard an empty break room anywhere in that entire industrial complex. I walked into an empty break room, and when you walk in, the sound stops, but it always sounds like there's people in there until you walk in, because so many people have used that break room for different things over so much time that it's created, well, an echo haunting. And then you have your actual repeater ghosts. And repeater ghosts, they are still not really typically attached to the ka or actual soul of the person, but that memory has either become so ingrained that the place remembers the image and you begin seeing ghosts, or people have heard it so much that they start adding to it. And that is how a repeater ghost can expand and become larger, because people begin associating that echo with a thought, and they become coming up with ideas of what they think that sound is, and that feeds into this idea and makes it larger. So sometimes you'll have the haunting of a ghost of a place that isn't, well, it's real, but it is not a ghost. It is essentially a tulpa whose essence is created by that repetition of patterns, and then people believed ideas into it and it became larger. And that is the basic idea of how the repeater ghost is created. Now, the interesting thing about this is that not only does it teach us how powerful the law of repetitions can be, but we can use that momentum ourselves, because that is a moment that we can count on. If we figure out when that sound is going to happen, we can use those echoes, that memory, as the momentum for our own spell work, and perhaps even connecting with that repeater spirit and getting it to create that sound in a similar environment that is not its own. Now this, of course, is also just theory. I haven't worked with this much myself. I have gotten things to knock in places besides where they should be a few times, but I haven't been able to replicate it enough to go, oh yeah, I know for sure what is going on here. Anyways, while we are on the channel, I do have some things that I wanted to address. Last week I mentioned that I would be doing a video on Wednesday for the AWA and the Dream Door. I have come to realize that those things are not completely connected. They are actually two separate projects. The Dream Door is something connecting us to our astral platform and to the S1 stage, while the AWA, though the Horde and the AWA are allied, they are separate things. So those videos are actually going to be separate videos. I will be dealing with summoning your higher self and the Dream Door this coming Wednesday. So that video will come out, but it's going to be separate from the AWA video because those are actually separate things. Anyways, we have a bit more to say on these echo hauntings, in that this is something we can use as well. We have the repeater ghost and how we can use the momentum for that. But the echo haunting, even though it's much more vague, is actually the more useful of the two, because it gives us an etched theme. Often places will have a vibe so strong into them that they have their own momentum of patterns and cycles. And this is what we can use the most. This is the kind of thing you want to build up in your temple room, or what I would call my warren, your altar room, whatever you want to call it. You want to get that memory instilled into the place of spells working here, of the momentum of spell work, of successful spell work, and generating that idea and repetition of the cycle of sorcery. And that opens the place up and gives it the momentum to be essentially a permanent circle or portal over time. And this is why I honestly don't ever banish my circles, portals. Sometimes I will close things temporarily. The only time I actually banish, which we'll be talking about later in the series, is in an emergency. And even then, I'm usually aiming directly at the thing I'm trying to banish, because I like that momentum of my altar room to keep forward. I like the memories of successful spells to stay in place. Anyways, next week we will begin talking about how an actual ghost is formed. And like I said, this Wednesday we will get into summoning the higher self. Until then, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to do so now. And until then, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.